So, two key trends that we've been seeing in the UK is firstly, investment costs are typically 3 times higher than expected. And the transaction costs, those are the costs that are previously not reported, are actually range between 30 to 50% of the investment costs. So in a nutshell, there's a significant amount of costs that were previously not accounted for by pension funds. And what I'd also like to say at this point is that over the past 3 years that we've been collecting costs from asset managers, we've seen an increasing positive response from asset managers in providing us with that cost data. So that we now collect around 99% of costs available under the current framework. So firstly, I think it's really important that your trustee board has a really good understanding of cost transparency under the current framework. This framework is actually managed by a group called the CTI. It was formed by the PLSA, the LGPS and the IA. I also think it's really key that your trustees actually understand their regulatory obligations, especially if they're responsible for a DC trust scheme. The CTI group this year launched a standardised template for UK pension funds. This allows you to compare your costs apples with apples. We must, however, be aware that although being positively received by asset managers in the UK, there have been multiple formats and multiple different types of templates that have been used, and therefore we have to allow some flexibility, especially if you have some overseas asset managers who may have been used to working with their local market template. We break this into 5 steps. First of all, number 1, contact your asset managers. Send them the CTI template and ask them to complete it on behalf of your pension scheme. Number 2, contact your scheme administrator and ask them to provide you with the pension management costs. These are the costs associated with running the legal entity of the pension scheme. Number 3, receive that cost data back from your asset managers. Remember, not all of them will use the CTI template, so it might be in different formats. And also the costs from your scheme administrator, the pension management costs. Number 4, check and validate that data for correctness. And number 5, consolidate all of that data into the user template. This is the template that has been usefully provided by the CTI group so that you can consolidate all data at a scheme level, so you can analyse the data at a scheme level. So this comes with experience and knowledge of cost transparency and the costs associated with a specific mandate. The easy to verify costs are, of course, the annual management charge and the performance fees. The transaction costs are more complex to verify because these will depend, first of all, on the type of strategy you've applied to the mandate, the activity, and of course any change of strategy throughout that mandate life. The other challenge is actually the education of asset managers and how to complete these templates. And we've actually spent a significant amount of time working in partnership with the asset managers to ensure accuracy of the data. As cost transparency becomes the norm and we become more informed, this all will of course become easier. So I think I go back to my earlier point. Make sure that your trustee board is very well informed on cost transparency. There's lots of tools and lots of educational events available. Check in with the PLSA. You could also look at the checklist that's actually at the back of the PLSA Made Simple guide for cost transparency. That will give you some guidance. And then I think at this point, I just want to make one last point I always raise. Do not look at costs in isolation. You have to take them in context of the strategy, the activity and the type of mandate. Cost transparency is not a cost reduction exercise.